Hello, hello. Welcome all, and thank you for joining this office hour call. Welcome to this early March office hour. Hope that you and your loved ones are all very well, especially now in this mad world. But we're going to focus on positivity. Spring has arrived here, and the sun is shining, and we are very, very happy to see all of you again in this call. There's close to 400 people who are going to attend this call, so it's really good that we see all of you. Um, Today we are going to discuss Business Central apps for Microsoft AppSource, and we're planning to give you a status update on how fast the BC app community is growing. We'll go over some of the publication process basics again, and then explain to you what work is being done with the Wave 1 release of 2022, which is actually sneaking up on us because that will go live in a few weeks. And with that release, as you can expect from us, we are continuously improving the product and the service, which also means the publication process for Business Central apps, so that it's better for you, easier for all involved, while keeping quality in mind for our customers. Of course, since this is an office hour call, we're going to reserve quite some time to answer the questions that you might have on this topic. And for those questions, we are blessed to have some of the best, the creme de la creme of our engineering team here in this call. Let me quickly introduce them. So the main lead for today is Quinten. He is a engineer, and then right behind him, in his right corner, there is Freddie Kay, which you might have known as a very famous movie star, but he is reincarnated as a technical evangelist for BC. And in Quinten's left corner, there is the duo of Peter and Stefan, and you can blame them or worship them for, all the development tools which you use on a daily basis with BC. And my name is Kurt. I have the pleasure to be your host and your voice during this call. Some practicalities. If you've got questions, feel free while the guys are presenting to type in the questions. In the Q&A window. You'll find that in the right top of your Teams experience. There's a Q&A button, and there you can start typing in your questions. We're going to ask you to please keep them on topic. So today the call is about Business Central apps for AppSource, as we explained earlier. So yeah, let's make sure that these are the questions that you type in, because that's the experts that we have here today. And then by the end of the call, I also have the pleasure to share some what the topic is for the next office hour call, and I'll also take a minute to talk to you about what you can expect from Microsoft participating at Directions North America. Quinten, are you ready to take the floor?
Yes, I am ready.
All right, take it away.
So in this presentation around Business Central apps in AppSource, or AppSource apps in Business Central, that works too. We will be presenting the various resources that you should all be aware about, whether you're coming to AppSource now or whether you have already some apps in AppSource. So we'll be presenting those resources along with the AppSource Yammer group. We'll be talking a bit about Business Central 2022 Wave 1 that is coming soon, and that has an impact on your apps in AppSource and on the submission process itself. We will look into the AppSource submission process, what has changed over the last period, and what kind of improvements we've done there, and also give you some insights into how the validation is done, what's currently failing, and how to work to fix those failures that you might have in your submissions. And then finally, we'll have the Q&A, as mentioned by Kurt. So if you're new to AppSource, the first place for you to have a look at is the aka.ms/bc publisher, where you can find all the information on how to get to AppSource, how to become a partner, how to register as a publisher, how you can get an ID range for the objects that you will define in your extensions, but also how to request affixes to use in your object names. And you'll also see how to get access to the preview builds for Business Central so that you can try your extensions against the current version of Business Central, but also the upcoming release. And you'll find there also some additional resources that are valuable for you to look into. The other thing that we want to present for everyone now, whether you're new or have already some experience with AppSource app, is the BC Yammer group that you can join at aka.ms/BC-Yammer. We have there more than 1,290 members that are both from Microsoft and from the partner community. This is the primary vehicle of communication notifications that we are using. So you'll find there all the announcements that we're doing regarding the changes on the technical validation, but also various type of questions that may be asked by partners to each other. So it's the perfect place for you to raise and ask questions that can be answered by both Microsoft, but also other partners that might be facing the same challenges than you are facing. If you do not have access to it, email dean365bep@microsoft.com and you'll be able to get access to the Yammer group. So what happened regarding AppSource apps in the last period? So we currently have 2,220 apps listed in AppSource. That's around 400 more than 6 months ago and 900 more roughly than a year ago. So we still see a good increase there. And those numbers are only considering the apps listed in AppSource. So all the library apps that you are submitting as part of your submissions and that are not publicly listed on the AppSource marketplace are not considered there. So we see a good number there. Regarding the technical validation, we're tracking over time the pass rate for your submissions, and we've seen that the rate is remaining pretty high now. It remains at 76%, which is a bit lower than it used to be 6 months ago, but we'll see why this has slightly decreased. And we'll explain all the improvements that we did in order to ensure a better customer experience that are then making the submission process a bit more difficult, but with the goal of improving the overall experience for customers. For the technical validation, the place to start is aka.ms check before you submit. This is where you'll see the technical validation checklist with all the requirements for AppSource apps. You will get there also links to the self-validation script that helps you discover these failures before you submit. We added a new resource there, the technical validation FAQ that you can check at aka.ms tech validation FAQ. This is a place where we're gathering all the different inputs that we get from partner and all the different questions we got in support cases or on Yammer and so on. And this is really the place you should have a look at whenever you have an issue, because we're constantly updating it and it's full of valuable information. Finally, regarding the technical validation, if you're facing any issues, we're reminding that the support channels now are done through Partner Center, so you can directly log a support request for your technical validation issues through Partner Center. Regarding the marketing content validation, this is something that is now done by a global team, global AppSource team, which is in charge of checking the validation of various offers, including Business Central. It is still a manual process, but they're very responsive and they're usually processing the offers in a business day or even less. You can find all the marketing validation requirements at aka.ms/appsourcego. And there is also there an FAQ where you can find some of the common failure reasons and get some more information about the validation process. Same thing, the support can be, you can reach out for support through Partner Center. We wanted also to mention something about the 365val@microsoft.com. In the past, we were asking you to contact us through this channel in order to get clarification on your validation failures or ask any kind of questions related to AppSource. This is not the case anymore. D365val@microsoft.com is now only handling the affix registration for partners targeting the AppSource marketplace. So any other kind of questions should be directed through other channels, and we'll have a look at the various channels a bit later in this presentation. So Business Central 2022 Wave 1 is coming. It will be available in a few weeks. You already have the ability now to create some preview environments for version 20. You can already have access to the preview builds through Docker images. So try it out and see what kind of great features we have there. Along with Business Central 2022 Wave 1, we're also making Business Central available with new countries or regions. So that can also have an impact on the markets that you're targeting in the AppSource marketplace. So you can find more information at aka.ms/bc countries. We've also changed something regarding to AppSource apps with the upcoming release of Business Central. We used to install the latest extension of AppSource apps on the upgrade of customer environment to a next major by selecting the latest version of the apps at some point in time, meaning that we had some kind of semi-automated process on our side that we were running, and this one would select which is the version that is picked up during the upgrade of customer environments. And this caused some lack of clarity on your side, and we decided to improve it. We reached out to the community in the BC Yammer group and created a poll asking for what was the desired behavior on upgrade. And considering the inputs that we got from this, we have now changed the upgrade behavior so that whenever a customer environment is upgraded to the next major, we will be installing the latest versions of the AppSource apps at the point in time of the upgrade. So that makes the behavior more predictable, but also ensures that all your customers are getting the latest fixes from your extensions when they are upgrading to the next major. As Business Central 22 Wave 1 is coming, we're now also requiring that all the submissions in the Partner Center are also compatible with version 20. We enabled this validation on the 1st of March, and if your app is not compatible with 20, now your submission will fail. You can check if your app is ready using aka.ms/ready for next major, and then specify there the app ID of your extensions. And you'll have a look at whether your app is ready for all countries, some countries, you can get all the information there. Again, this change in the validation, so to validate now against version 20, was announced in the BC Yammer group. So another reason for you to join the group if you haven't joined it already. We're also here reminding you that making sure that your app is compatible with version 20 is pretty important, because it will ensure that all your customers will have a smooth upgrade of their environments and that your app won't be blocking the upgrades. You can find more information at this link for all the practices regarding maintaining and developing apps. We have some guidelines explaining that after a certain period of time, if your app is still blocking the upgrade of customers, we might end up installing them. So make sure you're ready on time and that your apps are compatible with the next version. Finally, if you have any feedback or any idea on tooling or any kind of suggestions on how you would be able to prepare better for the next release, let us know. You can log an idea on aka.ms/bc ideas, but you can also reach out on the Yammer group and provide there some suggestions. And there has even been some questions in the last days from various people from Microsoft asking you for feedback on how you could get ready in a better way for the next release. Now, if we look at the AppSource submission process, so this is how it looks like in Partner Center when you've successfully submitted an app. And we're highlighting here 3 stages where the Business Central product team is particularly involved. So the first one is the automated application validation, and this is where the technical validation is running. The technical validation has been fully automated since October now. It's running 24/7. There is an average processing time of 4 minutes, and we are able to process 99% of the submission under 30 minutes. So you get pretty instant feedback on your submissions regarding the technical validation. The marketing validation is done during the manual validation step, which happens later on. It is usually processed under 1 business day, as mentioned previously, but we have some plans to automatically approve the marketing validation whenever there are no marketing changes in your offer, in order to provide you with an even faster process when you want to release important bug fixes to your customer. Finally, the last step we're presenting here is the publish application with the service, which is the moment where the apps in the submissions are actually uploaded to Business Central. From upon completion of this stage, the apps can be installed in customer environments. We're mentioning this because there is also an App Source preview link that you can see in this process. And the preview is currently supporting only the offer listing in the App Source Marketplace. So you can see how the offer looks like and if your marketing materials are correct, if you're satisfied about the visibility and so on. But the apps cannot be installed in Business Central environments until you have reached the publish application with the service stage in Partner Center. Regarding the marketing validation, one important thing to keep in mind, especially with Business Central 2022 Wave 1 coming in the next weeks, is that if your submission targets all countries and regions where Business Central is available and you have this specific text in your offer description, then you need to make sure that when you resubmit your offer, you have actually selected all the markets. At some point in time, the new countries will be added there. And if you haven't selected them while your offer description still specifies that you're targeting all the countries and regions for where Business Central is supported, then your submission will fail. So just have a look at this. It's a pretty simple change, but we are seeing some failed submission because of this. Regarding the technical validation, we'll start here by giving a short introduction of what is being validated and in order for you to have more context about it. So when you're submitting apps in Partner Center, you have an app and potentially some libraries. We are validating the main app for your submission and all the libraries which are required by the main app. So there are multiple apps validated. We're also validating it for all the selected countries, regions that we've seen previously. And we're validating those apps for all the releases that are targeted by your submission. And we are computing the releases targeted by your submission based on the application property in the manifest of the apps submitted. For example, if you have an app that specifies application with version 19.0, this means that this app will be validated for all Business Central releases starting from 19.0, so 19.0 to 19.5, but also version 20, as we are now validating for version 20 as well. And once the validation has succeeded for this app, this release that we computed will also be used to know for which environments the app is available. So an app that was validated for version 19 cannot be installed on environments prior to that, so on cannot be installed on 18.5 or earlier versions. What is important to note here is that the target release field that you can see in Business Central, in the Partner Center under supplemental content is not used, and we have some plans to remove it from the UI. And we're seeing sometimes some confusion in that regard. As we are validating apps for all the countries and the country regions and all the releases targeted by your submission, they can potentially be thousands of different compilations or validation tasks done for one submission. This means that the results can be very verbose if you have some errors. And if your app is not using partner telemetry, we are displaying the results directly in a Partner Center UI, but they can then end up being truncated. In that case, we're advising you to fix what you see, then resubmit and see how it is going. You can use the self-validation script as well. But we're also recommending to use partner telemetry. So you're enabling partner telemetry by setting the application insights key or application side connection string in the manifest of your apps, and then the results will directly be logged into App Insights. Then you can query directly the application insights, and then you can find all the information. 2 tips here. Look into the custom dimensions. They have a lot of information. Looking just at the error message, is not always sufficient. And you can look more specifically at the events logged with the ID LC0034 because they show the errors reported for most of the submissions. Finally, we're also providing you with a troubleshooting guide that you can execute. That's a Jupyter notebook where you can just specify your connection string to the app insight, what is your validation request ID that you will get in the error message in Partner Center, and then you can just execute the TSG. So this will give you all the results directly. All this information is available at https://aka.ms check before you submit. You can find more information on the technical validation FAQ as well. And this is really the place you should have a look. If your submission fails, you'll find there how to fix them, why the errors have been put in place, and tons of valuable information. One of the things that we see the most in the validation results are usually the breaking change validation. So when we run the technical validation, we are comparing your current extension that you are submitting now with the current version of the app that you have in AppSource, if you already have one, in order to detect potential breaking changes. The goal for this is to make sure that the changes you're doing in your app won't be negatively impacting customers, and they ensure that your customer will have a good experience when upgrading your apps to the next version, when upgrading their environments to the next version of Business Central, or when installing other apps that depend on your apps. In this breaking changes, we can see 3 different types of breaking changes. Some are allowed, some are not. Compilation breaking changes are the first one. So these type of changes are the ones that negatively impact the compilation of dependent extensions. So for instance, if you're removing a page or a code unit from your extension, that can negatively impact another app if that app is referencing it, and it will then fail to compile. So it cannot be installed on the customer environment. Those breaking changes are actually allowed as long as the objects that you are removing have been obsoleted first, either using the obsolete state properties or the obsolete attribute. You can find here an example with one of the AppSource scope rules that is validated for it, AS0018. You can look at the AppSource scope documentation. It has examples for it. The second type of breaking changes that is validated are the runtime breaking changes. So those are runtime that impact the runtime behavior of dependent extensions. So the dependent extensions can still compile, but they are now facing some runtime issue when users are using them. They are also allowed as long as the objects in the baseline are obsolete. The idea is that you will obsolete some procedures or some objects in order to let dependent the publishers of the dependent extension know that a change will come at some point, and then they can do the required changes to make sure that they don't get negatively impacted when your changes are actually done. The final type of breaking changes are schema breaking changes. Those ones are the ones impacting table extensions in your apps. For instance, removing a table field or removing a table, and those are not supported in Sass. We have some obsolete state property that you can use on table and table fields, but you cannot remove the code. Once you mark your table as obsolete state removed, it means that dependent extensions cannot reference it anymore, but you still have to keep the table in your source code. It cannot be removed yet. So in this context, over the last month, we've added multiple AppSource scope rules that aim at preventing those breaking changes. In August 2021, so some time ago already, we started validating for procedure breaking changes that impact the compilation of dependent apps. We then improved the validation of page breaking changes by enabling further AppSource scope rules. In January 2022, we also added validation for runtime breaking changes. So making sure that your changes won't break the runtime behavior of extensions that depends on your app. We also added in January 2022 a requirement that all AppSource apps must specify the application property. As you've seen before, we are using this property to compute what is the target release for your extension. So this simplifies the handling of dependencies and makes the story much simpler. And it also makes sure that your AppSource apps can also be installed on environments that are code customized. So meaning environments where the base application is not provided by Microsoft, but by other partners. All these new validation rules, which have been enabled in Partner Center during the technical validation, have been announced in the AppSource Yammer group. So again, another good reason to join the group where you can get all the information on this type of announcements. For more information on the rules themselves, see the documentation of the AppSource COP. This is the main tool that we use for the technical validation. So getting familiar with it is really a plus regarding the technical validation. So what has been failing for the technical validation? We gathered here the top 10 failures that we've seen in February 2022. And we can see that the validation that we introduced over the last month is there. So we had 130 submissions that failed due to procedure compilation breaking changes. We had also 88 submissions that failed due to page compilation breaking changes. So the new validation has caught some issues and prevented some further issues for customers in their environments. What you can see here is also that most of the failure reasons can be caught by the self-validation script. So we're recommending again to use it, as this would catch this kind of issues. The last type of issues that is a bit harder to get a number about is the case where apps are not compatible with all the countries that are targeted by your submission. For instance, if you have an app that uses some Spanish functionalities and your app is like your submission is targeting more countries and those countries do not have some of the specific Spanish functionalities that you're using, then your submission will fail. So that's another category of failure that we've seen. The self-validation script, so it's a one-liner that you can run in BC Container Helper. You can specify there what are the dependencies for your app. You can specify what are the previous apps, which are the ones that you currently have in AppSource and that your customer are using. And that will be used as a baseline for the breaking change validation. You can specify there also the affixes for your publisher and the list of countries that are targeted by your submission. And if you run this, you should have, and you're able to pass the validation from this self-validation script, then you should be pretty confident that your app will also pass the validation in Partner Center. The self-validation script has been updated in the last period to be more efficient and to reflect better what is done during the technical validation. A couple of good advices. You should run the self-validation script. You cannot expect the validation to happen in any particular order in AppSource. So that was even more the case before when the technical validation was a manual process. But if you have multiple submissions that contain some apps that are not already in AppSource, then you need to make sure that each of the submission has all the data, all the dependencies and all the apps that are required for it to succeed. Otherwise, you need to wait that the app, that the validation of some apps go until completion, and then you can submit another, you can create another submission with apps that would depend on those first apps. You should also never submit an app from your own laptop. We really recommend you to have your own DevOps processes, your own CI/CD pipelines that build, test, validate, and sign the apps. This way you're making sure that your apps are always ready for to be published in Partner Center. We also really recommend to run tests on the next major so that you can detect breaking changes early and you can fix your app accordingly. You do not have to wait until we are about to ship version 20 to know if your app is compatible. You can run this on your own already. And as a last recommendation, if we advise to keep your 19 compatible version of the app compatible with version 20 so that you can easily manage your customers that are both on 19 and on 20 as soon as we start moving their environments. If you're still facing some issues after all these advices, we have different support channels where we can help you answer the questions you have or help you troubleshoot the issues you're facing. If you're reporting an issue to the wrong support channel, we'll of course be directing you to the right one. But if you want them fixed in the best delays, then you should keep this slide in mind. So if you have an issue submitting an app in Partner Center, then the right place to log an issue is Partner Center customer support. As soon as your app has completed the submission process in Partner Center and you have an issue using the app in Business Central, then you should log the issue through Business Central customer support. And you should provide information about the environment that is impacted and so on. D365val at Microsoft.com is the place now for the registration of affixes and nothing else. The AppSource Yammer group is the place for you to ask questions on how to develop and maintain your AppSource apps. And we have also 2 GitHub repositories that you can use. So the first one is Nav Container Helper. This is where the self-validation script is defined, and you can then ask questions or raise issues regarding the script. We also have the Microsoft AL, which is the place where you can ask questions or raise issues regarding the AppSource scope. You can find this information under the technical validation FAQ under channels to ask questions or report issue. So the information is in the FAQ too. And that concludes the presentation for Business Central apps in AppSource.
Thank you very much, Quentin. A very nice update. Just one number that I wanted to reiterate and emphasize again. Quentin, you said that we have 2,229 apps available at this moment in time, and that is just absolutely amazing because it is more than 50% of all the Dynamics 365 apps available on AppSource. So really kudos to the whole community out there for being very active and publishing your apps. Thank you also for the questions which came in so far. Don't be shy, keep questions coming. But we're going to go through the list, and the very first one was a question from Errol, where he basically says, like, first of all, kudos to the whole team for making, optimizing the process really well. But he has a question about, is there any chance to automate and therefore speed up the manual AppSource publishing validation? Peter, you replied to that question. Do you want to give some context here?
Yes, we think that is a good idea. So we've been asking for that as well for the owning team on this, and it looks likely to happen, hopefully in the near future. But basically, that there's no reason to run the manual content validation if there's no changes. So that if you're just updating the app, that would speed up the submit process even more. But let's see what happens. But fingers crossed. Should come soon.
All right. Christian is asking, are PTEs also checked via aka.ms ready for next major? Who wants to take this one?
So I don't think they are. Quentin, do you know?
No, they are not checked. So we're only validating the latest version of AppSource apps and making the results available ready for next major. In order to detect whether PTE are compatible with the next major, we have other mechanisms and other channels of communication, mainly based on emails.
Yeah, and that happens also as part of sort of the upgrade process on validating those there.
All right, and then Gert is asking a question where he wants to do a smoke test of the app while it is still in preview state. So is that a possibility, Peter?
Yeah, so I assume the preview state is in the submit process for AppSource apps. You can have there's like a preview step. So so again, this is another area where we think that is something that could have good value. It's something we discuss as a fall release candidate, but it's not approved yet, so it might not happen. We do see some partners instead deploy the AppSource apps as dev extensions to sandboxes for the customer data to be able to test. That is possible. You need to be aware that when you publish dev extensions, the IP protection doesn't apply there because we assume that you want to debug dev extensions. And secondly, to not have a dev extension and AppSource, the final AppSource versions clashing, you should make sure to update the versions when you then submit the final one to AppSource. Otherwise, they will clash when we try to install the final AppSource apps to environments, and there's a dev extension out there in a sandbox of the same identity. But that is a possible workaround with those caveats now.
Thank you, Peter. And then Dimitris is asking, do we have any guidelines for apps that are currently published in AppSource with the call to action, contact me? Should the partner republish those apps? Freddie, I think that, so
we used to have a rule stating that contact me apps, you could do that for a limited period of time, and then you had to change the app to free or free trial. We went away from that, like I think a year ago, something like that, where we now allow contact me apps, free trial or free apps to reside in AppSource, and if a partner wants his app to be listed as contact me, he is free to do so.
All right, and then somebody is asking, the AppSource submission technical validations, is that using the same version of validation used in PowerShell?
And so yeah, if you use the latest container helper, then that one should do the validation in the same way as the technical validation done by the service. Of course, it's not the same code, so there can be differences, but we should use the same AppSource card, the same v6, the same everything for this validation. If there are changes or differences, then feel free to create an issue on GitHub, then have container helper repo, and we'll investigate why that should happen.
Thank you, Freddie. Manish is asking a question, if I understand it well. If someone is publishing an app, then the app is available for a set of countries, but then later on, we as Microsoft, we can decide to add more countries. Are those additional countries being checked and validated against as well? Or how do ISVs needs to look to additional countries coming up with Business Central? Stefan, you put in that is currently not possible, and that probably also means that ISVs continuously need to test against all available versions. Is that the correct assumption from me?
Yeah, so there will be no notification sent out when you add another language. You need to keep track of that yourself.
Right.
Yeah, we also assume that when people are listing apps in different countries, they might want to actually check whether they are allowed to sell in that country. So it's not just, we can't just like automatically validate and list apps in all countries for partners. They kind of have to be able to support that country and support the app in that country. So it's a manual process. And I think that's the same with the next question. You cannot automate the country selection. It's at some point in time, we are working on enabling to let this be done through an API or something like that. Then of course you can create code that does some of these things, but right now it's a manual process.
Yeah. But it is a very fair point, of course, that if you change country, that, you know, language is always also, you know, that there's an opportunity to translate that, etc. But so yeah, Errol, good point, but still working on it. Then somebody's asking, like, do we record these office hour calls? And of course we do. We make them available in on aka.ms/bc offer hours recordings. There you can find all of our office hours back. And at aka.ms/bc office hours, you can go and register for some of the upcoming ones. Freddie, can a library app be submitted without showing on the AppSource marketplace? Do we want to explain what a library app is with this question as well?
I can answer this question. So from the point of view of Partner Center and AppSource apps, we consider a library app as an app that you include in your submission, but that isn't the main one, meaning the one reflecting the offer that is published in the AppSource marketplace. So if you have a library app and you want to include a fix for it, then you can just include the newer version of this library as part of the submission of any of the other app that you have listed on AppSource that depend on it, and then just submit this in Partner Center. And then we will we will validate this new version of the library, and we will update it, push it to Business Central, but the listing won't be creating for it. The offer listing in AppSource will only be for the main app in the submission.
Thank you, Quentin. The next one is about obsolete fields. Do we believe it's possible to completely remove fields from tables or tables in its entirety, perhaps through a third obsolete state? Who wants to take this one?
I can mention that it's something we heard a number of times and are aware of, but it's not something in the near-term plans. I think the owners of that are not in this meeting now, so I think that's the closest answer that we can give.
Thank you, Peter. Stefan, this is most likely a question for you. The schema breaking changes will be supported someday?
It's the same as Peter says, same kind of problem. We are aware of it. We are keep talking about it and try to find the best solution, but we need maybe experts to tell us more about when we can look at this. I would say yes, eventually it would be nice to see this working for everyone and be like seamless, but it has a lot of complications to get to that place. So right now it is possible through some migration, and for PTEs you can do some forcing, but it's, the solution is not all there yet. We hope to get it soon or someday.
And I think that the suggestion of supporting schema breaking changes for AppSource app is already there somewhere on aka.ms/bc ideas. So we're encouraging everyone that would like to see this feature supported in SaaS for AppSource apps to go there and vote up on the idea or to give it more visibility and weight during planning.
All right, thank you, Quentin. Next one is great question as well. What's the best way to know who has installed my app? Because apparently when somebody knows my app ID, they can most likely compose the URL and install my app without me knowing that. Do we have suggestions on that?
So telemetry is your friend here to when stuff gets installed. It will tell you what gets installed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as we've said a number of times, Contact Me is not a licensing option. people can install your app without any problem. So you need to build in either a monetization solution, or you need to use telemetry too, and or yeah, you'll get contacted when people install your app if you've provided the right places to. I think you can, with the CRM system or an Azure table or something like that, you can get contacted when people install your app. These are the things, but we recommend that you install or you create a licensing option that you build into your app, or maybe connect with any of the app source vendors that have licensing apps out there that you can integrate to and get monetization through that.
All right, and the next question is from Duran. Duran is pretty new to this community, so Duran, welcome to the coolest community on this planet. How do we ISVs protect their IP so that customers have to pay to use them after an appropriate managed trial? Freddie already talked about, that you have to build your own monetization, but I guess that there are other pieces that we want to zoom in on as well, right, Peter?
Can you repeat those?
Yeah, so this was about the protecting IP question, where you basically replied, well, there's multiple pieces.
So there's actually three pieces to this. There's whether you want to expose your source code or not. So for instance, if you're an app source publisher, do you want to have resellers be able to debug the code to figure out issues? That is a kind of like an individual choice for the app source app owners. You can lock down your IP, and in the last release, we also added the ability for you to dynamically grant trusted partners access to the source for debugging purposes. So that's sort of the first thing, if you want to lock down the IP itself. Then to actually execute the code, I mean, all of your objects will have to have an object ID, and they need to be in the customer's license for them to execute that. Of course, if you have full source, you can copy that and re-implement that. But if you don't grant them source and they don't have the license to execute, they can't execute. And then the last one is that you might want to have some kind of monetization on top of that. Then, and currently today, that monetization is something that you need to build yourself.
All right, thank you very much. The next one is about when, I guess, library apps are being installed automatically. So if a customer installs app A and app B, which shares same library, app X, does it successfully install both apps? But I assume he means app X then automatically, but anybody
Yes.
wants to comment on this piece?
Yep. So when you're installing an AppSource app, we're automatically installing all the dependencies that are required for this app. If you already have app X installed on your environment for whatever reason, then we won't install it because it's there already. But if you do not have this library app that is required, then it will be installed automatically.
Okay. And can we publish a package of apps as one product? Or do we have to publish every app separately? That's a question from Anna.
So you can, this one is related to the previous question. So if you see your localization app that you want to list on the AppSource marketplace as one offer, whether it is one app, one big app containing all the functionalities, or just one app, one smaller app that is listed on AppSource that depends on multiple libraries with different functionalities, then everything will be installed at the same time when customers are trying to install it. So you can take your app, breaking into smaller libraries, submit them together, and then your app and all the libraries will be installed automatically when users are installing the app.
Awesome. Another couple of questions apparently. I guess that people are still looking for, can we get to which customer is actually using my app? So if we know the tenant ID of which the app is installed, can we get to the domain name through the tenant ID? I guess the domain name of who's the customer. At least if I understood the question correctly. Thoughts on this, guys? Nobody? Do we want to pause this one?
I don't really have a good answer for that one.
Good question, apparently.
Yeah, this is a good question.
Is there a way to automate creating the translation files for the app? Right now, we are uploading the default XLF files to online Microsoft translation services and creating the required translation from here. Freddie, do I remember correctly that we have a couple of partners who have toolings for this?
I think there are, but I can't remember.
There are a number of Visual Studio Code add-ins from partners around this. There's at least 2 larger ones for handling working with translation files easier. There is also, I'm not sure exactly the question here. I mean, there is an option to generate the actual files from VS Code, but when is this automated creation of translation files going to happen? Is that part of is there asked for as CI/CD flow or something like that, or is it within the tool, or where is it?
All right. Does anybody have the link to the BC IDF for schema breaking changes? So if somebody has that we could paste that in, that would be amazing. So Duran is asking again, so supplemental to the earlier question, how can ISV prevent customers running extensions without paying for an appropriate license? Do we need to implement our own licensing key mechanism? So I think we already responded to that one, saying like, yes, at this moment in time, you should. You can make it very simple, you can make it very complex, but we would also advise you to look around, look on AppSource, because there's a couple of partners out there which have already made some good solutions that you can lean on. So going back to the telemetry question, Stefan, telemetry will tell you when someone installs your extension. Can telemetry, it probably also only displays tenant IDs. I think that's what the person is saying.
Yeah, I think that's back to the question about how do we get from tenant ID to domain.
Yeah. Yes.
So I posted in a link for something where you in PartnerSource can look up the domain name, but that requires that you are a global admin or at least a partner for that customer. So I don't know if it applies to all, but at least try there first.
Right. Okay, so Owen is asking, in self-validation, will upgrade validation be possible to use for the next major, say BC 19.4 to BC 20? Freddie?
Yeah, so self-validation, you can specify the parameters saying validate current, validate next major, and validate next minor. And then you can also specify all of the 3 of them. And then it's going to do validation for all, kind of the same as we do when we have a month to release next major. Then we include the validate next major flag automatically. So you can do that. You need to add the SaaS token then that you get from AKS MS Collaborate for the function to be able to download artifacts from BC Insider.
Alrighty, we're getting to the last questions for today, and one of the last questions which comes in from Sweden, from Peter. Is there a way to download the app file from AppSource if you want to create a dependency to do this app from your PDE, or do you have to get in contact with the ISV? Anybody who wants to go there?
You have to contact the ISV.
Yeah, it's always a best practice, of course, too.
You can get symbols, but you cannot get the app.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like, I assume if Peter is only wanting to code against it, you can rely on the symbols. But if you actually want to, get the source or want to, debug and lock down, you need to approach the ISV.
Yeah, and also if you want to develop locally in Docker, the symbols won't get you there. You cannot install the symbols. You cannot run your app. Then you have to develop against an online sandbox if you have that.
Right, and I think that going back to Doan's question, that this is probably providing some comfort that not everybody can just download apps and code and start looking at it. So there is some form of IP protection with this. Good, Quentin, can I get the next slide? We are 5 minutes before the end of the hour, so I just want to talk a little bit more about some of the resources. So if you don't really feel that your question was answered or was properly answered, then feel free to elaborate on this at aka.ms/bcyammer. We have multiple engineers and specialists over there can zoom in on your question. We do have quite some resources and some effort on our Twitter feeds. So please follow us over there on all the latest and the greatest. I also want to share that the Wave 1 of 2022 release is coming up, and we are very happy to share that very soon we will also have a launch event coming up, but we're going to share more about that in just a few days with all available sessions and how you can get access to the sessions and register, etc., etc. So hang on, that is going to come up very soon. If you're being, there was also a couple of great ideas over here. Feel free to submit your idea at aka.ms/bcideas. And also shared earlier, but just repeating myself, if you want to share the office hour calls with your colleagues, with your friends, then please point them to aka.ms/bc office hour recordings. And then next up, we do have going to talk a little bit about directions as well, because we are super excited that after been in the pandemic that we can go and see people again, and you can meet a big team of the Business Central team, but also from the Microsoft subs and from the Dynamics 365 sales teams and the Power team at Directions North America in Orlando in just a few weeks. So somewhere this month, April 3rd to 6th, we're going to be in Orlando and engaging with lots of partners. But we will also make sure that we have a couple of cool keynotes with cool demos. We have more than 100 breakout sessions. We do Q&As, town halls, hands-on labs, etc. So it would be super cool to see all of you come and talk to us, because that's why we do these kinds of events, to really engage with all of you. That's what really excites us.
Good. Can I add one thing to your former slide?
So, absolutely.
We had a number of questions on this tenant ID to customer and how do I detect who installs my app and all of these things. On the other slide where Kurt mentioned BC Yammer, that is really the place to ask a question like that, because there you will be talking to other partners who most likely have had exactly the same issue, and they've found solutions to that, and they'll be pointing you to, oh, use this app instead, or use this mechanism. So that's really a good place to get help for exactly questions like that, where we are sitting here. So yeah, I have an app in AppSource and I get marketplace leads, but I haven't really thought about monetization because I don't ask money for my app. So BC Yammer is absolutely the place for a number of those questions in the list. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Quentin, if you can just fast forward. The very last thing that I want to share is that, we're going to go to directions in a few weeks, and we will have our launch event coming up. So the next office hour call is going to be a few weeks away. But in that call, we're going to talk about something which is going to be super popular again, which is the delegated administration of Business Central or GDAP. I think that granular is missing, granular delegated admin of Business Central. So that's going to be a topic which we all want to see you again. So go and register yourself for this aka.ms/PC office hour call, and then we really look forward to seeing you in one of our upcoming events. Have a great rest of the day, and thank you for being here. Bye bye, everybody.
Thanks all.